So let's just summarize what's in the Geya right now. So the Maimon is identified 3 levels of Pada B'Shalom Nafshi. Or rather, no, I'm sorry. In Pada B'Shalom, there are 2 ways, but in general, there are 3 ways. What's not B'Shalom? What would be a redemption that is not peaceful? Redemption of what? Redemption of the Nefesh Elikis from the struggle, the stranglehold. Well, hopefully not a stranglehold, but the struggle, the battle with the Nefesh Bahamis. So what's not peaceful is a direct, intimate engagement, arguments and counter-arguments. We mean this intellectually, emotionally, convincing, fighting with the Nefesh Bahamis, with the self, until the self surrenders. For whatever reason, what convincing argument, whatever cheshbonos there are. The convincing arguments have many levels, from there's hell to pay one day for this, so okay, it doesn't pay. Or other arguments, the truth is intellectual, philosophical, it's endless levels to this battle, directed battle, which is called in the Pasuk mikrovli. Krov means battle, but also Melashon Kiruv, as in hand-to-hand combat, Krav Maga. So that's not a peaceful redemption. That's a redemption that comes as a result of a great and exhausting and constantly exhausting battle. And it's not once, it's a constant battle. Pada B'Shalom Nafshi means that the victory is peaceful. So this happens, he says, basically through Gilui HaYechidah, which is where the essence of the neshama is revealed in the face of that. So the Nefesh Bahamis not only surrenders, but he says it essentially transformed in the face of the unadulterated truth. Now the shaila is, he's speaking really be'emes of the level of the tzaddik gomer in Tanya, never mind the tzaddik she'eino gomer. He spoke earlier about the Nefesh Bahamis being sleeping. It's also not a battle, but that's not a true, doesn't affect transformation. That's like the tzaddik she'eino gomer to some degree, with a very high level of beinoni. That was talking to us in the Maimon. So the whole point of the Maimon is this paradox, as always, and that is, on the one hand, Taki, yes, we're talking about kibarabim hayu imodi, which means gila yechida, as the Mitler Rebbe says in Shari Tshuva. We explained why, because barabim, the many were with me, would sound anything but like gila yechida, which is singular and transcendent and essential. But he explains that it means a level that everybody has. The rabbim, what does everybody have? They're all Jewish. Yechid, everybody has. So that's what's revealed by him. So on the one hand, we're talking about Yid, who's kibarabim ha-yimadi, and yet the pasuk is saying, this is one of the questions, and how is there even a need for redemption? And why are we talking about a krav? Because the pasuk is hinting or saying that we're talking about a Yid that needs redemption because he's in a constant battle, and it's an intimate, close battle. Nonetheless, even us, in other words, lower than the beinoni, even us are shaykh to, and the pasuk is saying that they're shaykh to have this pediyah b'shalom of the highest level of gila yichid. Then he went on and he said how, which he'll explain further at greater length. He said how? By remembering, by knowing the machshava that I'm a yid, the machshava that I have this level of yichid, like it says in Tanya. Like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that remembering, when a Jew, that's the whole point from Perek Yud to Perek Chafei, is a Jew realizes and remembers that he would give up his life rather than deny God. Then if he could just hang on to that and remember and understand that every Aveda is a denial of Hashem, every Aveda is Aveda Zorah, as he explains at length in Tanya, and every mitzvah is an affirmation that God is one. It's not a question of I'm not perfect, so I sinned. If I'm not perfect, but I sinned, then we all give ourselves a pass, which is what we do, which is why we do it. Because, okay, not perfect, but I'm still basically, committed. The whole point of Tanya is that every Aveda be'emes is not that. Explains what Hashem Echad means. Every Aveda is a denial of Hashem's being. It's not timeout, it's a denial. He explains it length in Tanya. Hashem Echad means not that there's one God, but he's the only reality. And if I give reality to something else, even as temporary as it is, I've just said you're not one, you're not God. It's Avodah Zarah at its core. But that explains many questions. One of the most critical teachings of Chassidus. That's what he's saying here too. That if we just remember, I've got an neshama, but I don't feel it, I know it. In knowing, in the sense of experiencing it. But I have the Yechid, I have the neshama, so this is the key, in the face of which Nefesh Habahamis not only doesn't protest, but surrenders. You're talking God? Well, you created me too. I can't be out of this. I'm not going to deny him. If that's the issue, then I'm in. If that's what it comes down to. So this is the Nakuda that he says. But now a great arichas is as follows. He explained also, quoting from the Mittel Rebbe, that whenever the pasuk says Shalom, it's two Shalom. It means a piece, Melamayla Lamata and Melamata Lamayla. Each one has an advantage, of course. Melamayla Lamata it's the pure revelation of the neshama. The problem is, the transformation is thanks to the neshama. Not really the Nefesh Habahamis. It's not his transformation. Melamata Lamayla, it's me, the conscious me that's surrendering through my choice, not facing something which is I must be part of, but really a choice in my own world. That's the Maila that's Pnimius. That's the Maila of the Aveda coming to the Mata Lamaila. Now he's saying in Pod B'Sholem, it's both at once, which is yet to be explained in Siftes. That we speak here, Pod B'Sholem Nafshi, we're talking about a victory that is on the one hand, engagement, Melamata Lamaila, it's all mine and it's not my victory. And it's completely the neshama. It's the advantages of the bittul of Melamayla Lamata and the pnimius of Melamata Lamaila. That's yet to be explained. We're now already at Zion, and that'll be explained in Siftes. I'll just remind you, we had quoted from Macha Chedesh Tavshin Yud Aleph, where the same issue, same discussion is in the footnote. This is Mobi de Kemaimer. And Ha'odah 29 refers us in the brackets to this Maimer. He speaks there also about the B'Sholem. He says B'Sholem. He speaks about a Sholem that has the Maila, the virtue of both from above to below and below to above. And there he says as follows. He says, the moshel of Milamayla Lamata, Gila Yechida doesn't use those words there, but the same parallel is, so you have two lawyers, the prosecution, the defense, and they see the matter, from opposite perspectives, obviously. And the king comes in and expresses his position that the fellow on the dock is innocent. So then the kateger, the accusing, the prosecution will start arguing his defense too. We'll start seeing that because the king has said so, and his loyal subjects are so the battle is over and there's no prosecution. But that's because of the king. But it does affect, he said before, Ishapcha. There's an Ishapcha that happens from a Gilim Malamayla. He sincerely, he is now arguing in the accused's defense because the king has so expressed it. But Be'emet is coming from the king. And then there's a third level, which we're speaking here, which Siftes will address further, is not but from, he says, the Etzem HaMelech. The king doesn't have to be there even, isn't it? The Etzem HaMelech, the essence of the king, is what who's expressed his view, innocent, that the prosecution hears and is aware of and connects to, that affects the transformation, not echoing the king. But the Pnimius Mamish, that's what he says, because it's his own essence. end of the day, they are all extensions of the king. The first level was allegiance to the king. The deeper level is more than allegiance, it's a part of the king. So he said there in the Maimon, how does it manifest? How does it manifest that the prosecution, which is the Nefesh Bahamis, that's the prosecution. So the Maimon Lashon Chazal, the Yitzhahara is first the seducer, then the accuser, then the... So how does this happen? So the words in the Maimon, they're very, very powerful. He says when the person feels, that's the person. When the person feels, in the words in Yiddish, eng, he feels just uncomfortable in his own place. He's feeling uncomfortable. It's this healthy guilt. You know, guilt is a good thing. It comes from a very deep place. Why do you feel guilty? So when Nefesh Bahamis and the person himself starts to feel uncomfortable, it's not that good argument, you know, I got my position. That's the first level is, hey, you know, I got my position, my life, all the excuses. Eventually, kiss is another argument. Okay, you can't surrenders to the argument at the end of the day, you'll pay for this, all kinds of cheshbonos. But right now, I'm very comfortable with I'm at, but I'll surrender to this truth because it's convincing and it's long-term, whatever the cheshbonos are. Intellectual, emotional consequences. This is none of that. This is bullshit where the person himself is not comfortable. It can't be like this. That's Gilui Etz. That's the Etzman Neshama. And that's the true Hisabche. Now we're going to see, okay, so we're already seeing here because I'm quoting that mind, but that here we have the virtue, the mile of both. It's all coming from the nefesh, from the kuz, from the yichida. But what is it affecting? It's affecting that, not a surrender, that in his own world, it's untenable. And that's the mile of Melamata Lamaila. Okay, that's in the Oisius of Tafshin Yud Aleph. We'll see what he says here. I haven't learned it yet. Siftes and Al Maimon. Okay, that's what we're up to. Am I speaking loud enough? Yeah, you can hear me? You hear me? Okay, did we do? Yeah, after Isaiah now. This is why I brought this pasuk earlier. Because he wants to connect this whole beard with another pasuk, another maimon, which he quoted earlier. He said before, the pasuk Rav, Shloim Banoyich, that Rav, great is the peace, great is plural. That's also, that pasuk is also talking about Bei Shalom, meaning a peace that has the Maila, redemption, that has the Maila of Gilui from above to below and below to above, which you'll now explain further. So it's connecting to the Maimon of the Friedrich Rebbe. This is the Rebbe's Chasna Maimon, the Hemshech of the Chasna Maimon. The Sheva Brachas of the Rebbe. That he says, the pasuk says, and all your children are learned of God, and great is the peace of your children. So this is the Divra Maschel that the Friedrich Rebbe said, the Shabbos Parshas Vayetze, which is that Shabbos, the Shabbos of the Maimed, Tofresh Peites 1939, Shebekuntes Drushi Chasne. Part of the Memorim, they said
29.
Yes, 29, sorry, yeah. 1929. Yeah. And then he said, Behemshech to the Chasana, which was Yudalit Kislev. So there he brings, it's a second minor. So there he brings that Targum ala Pasuk v'chol banayichu. The Targum on this pasuk we just quoted is as follows: V'chol banayich alfin b'yiraisa davai. Let's just see the pasuk. The pasuk says, "V'chol banayich limudei Hashem." All your children are learned of God. What does this mean, learned of God? So the Targum explains what appears to be the obvious. All your children learn the Torah of God. That's what it means to know God. Learn it of God, the Torah of God. And great is or will be the peace of your children. So what does the Targum say? The Mavayir and explains in the Maimed, in other words, it seems that the Targum he's explaining what it means, the Mudde Hashem. So say, they all learn Torah. What do you just add Torah Savaya? So with this, the Targum is explaining what the Pasuk is saying. Why didn't the Pasuk just say Torah? Because the Pasuk, the Targum is bringing out, is saying that how are they learning Torah? They're learning Torah with a conscious awareness that it's the Eibishter's Torah. That's the Chiddush here. This is that explains that the Frierdiker Rebbe. This is the diuk that they learn the Torah of the Eibishter. It's not a Chiddush. The Kulam Yodim Shat Torah Torah Savaya. All he has to say the Targum is they learn Torah. And be'emes, that's all the pasuk would have to say. But that's the whole point of the pasuk. Who shalim without Torah shalem? Who? What brings the Rav Shalom Banoyich, without which there's not Rav Shalom Banoyich, is when their learning is in such a way, that he feels, not that he only knows, he feels that the Torah is the Eibishter's Torah. Moishe B'Maimer, and the Frierdiker Rebbe continues and adds that Pirush Alfin Beirais the Havaya who they learn Alfin who Dagam Shemidat Torah Ulpana. Even though the limited Torah is a way of Ulpana, meaning Shemei Masigat Torah Besichlei Seichla Nushim. The diuk here is that they understand it with human intellect. And Ulpan, that's where the word comes from. Could be another word that he used then. I don't know what other word, but another word that doesn't emphasize so much understanding. Oisik b'Torah, maybe. But here the diuk is, it's in Seichel and Nushi. Gam meaning, even in his learning, it is in the intellectual components. Not, in other words, it's not that he stops before or afterwards. One by learning God's Torah, but while he's learning, it's his seichel. No, even in the limud nirgish ha'Torah Torah savai. He's learning and understanding the Eibishter's Torah, and that's the diuk of the Targum. Alfin b'iraisa d'havai. Learning the Torah of the Eibishter. The pasuk continues. Hang on a second. So so therefore the learning is bebitl. That's quite the achievement. When you're learning, especially when he's talking learning Gemara, even learning Chassidus Meila, it's hard to forget that this is the Eibishter's. But in learning Torah, it's easy to, especially when you get into Agmad Yechavrusa, and especially when it comes a point to win the point, or you want to write a Chiddush. So it can become a very big ego thing. Or a person wants to be a godel. So the Chiddush is that even in his asog and his Chiddushim and so on, it's bebit. In order so in order that his Torah should be in such a way that he feels the noise and Torah, that he learns bebitl, and doesn't have to win the argument. It's if he davens the way he should. What's davening? Davening is affirming our connection to the truth of the Eibishter. So then, period. So the Akdama, that kind of learning is, of course, a conscious awareness and the desire to connect and a commitment to connect, and that's the Shema Yisrael, the whole davening. Then, so then through such an oifen such way of learning, then the pasuk concludes, Nas Rav Shalom Banoich. Great is the peace of your children, which we said earlier. Rav Shalom goes on the Beis Shalom we're talking about today, right? The two Ifanim. First he says, Riboy Shalom Talmid Chacham Oiskim B'Torah. He says the great peace for the Talmid Chacham who are involved in Torah. Gam Riboy Shalom Ba'olam, and from there it extends to the world. K'mei Shalom that Razal Pasuk Zeh, that Chazal learned from this pasuk. Don't read Banoich, but Boinoich, your builders, implying they build the world with peace. They bring peace to the world. So learning Torah in a way of Alfin by Raisa Davaya, as the Targum explains, brings to the Talmidei Chachamim this great shalom, this base shalom that we're learning about, and not only to them, but they suffuse the world with it. But let's continue. From the Hemshech of the Maimer, the flow of the Maimer of the Fiti Rebbe, it's understood, the Maimer of Chobanayich, Tafresh Pites. It's understood there, the Keshalim B'Datayre, Eine Beifen Zev, learning is not like this. With this bittul. Oh, so then, Noisif Lazeh maybe Shalom Ba'ilam. Not only is he not bringing peace to the world, Efshe Shiyovi, the Pirid Alavavs. You could even bring to Pirid Alavavs, dividing hearts, literally, dissent, argument, Heipech HaShalom. Ki because Keshechoser Etztei HaHergish HaToyri Teres Havaya. Very avoidic now, friends. When he's missing the hergish that the Torah is the Eibish's Torah. He knows. We're talking the hergish. So he literally, he holds himself in high esteem. He literally holds good unto himself. Pat on the back. Shalom HaTorah, how to be learned a lot of Torah. Look at order 43. Contrary to the Lashon of the Mishnah in Perek Beis, where this Lashon comes from, Pirkei Avos Mishnah Ches, Im Lamad the Torah, Ba'al Tachsik Torah Latzmach. If you learned a lot of Torah, don't hold. How to translate? Tachsik Torah Latzmach. Grasp good for yourself. Don't give yourself credit. So what happens is there's the opposite. So he does v'nasim b'tzias yesh. And the more he learns, the bigger yesh balgaiv he becomes. Shemach sechasatz milish hamayla. He considers himself to be a ishamayla, a elevated person, v'adam choshev, and an important person, a virtuous person. For some people, that's the goal. So that's the worst thing that could happen. And that's going to cause obviously conflict. Someone steps on your toes. Because of his yeshes, he thinks everything the other person says or does, it's to oppose him. Everything is a threat. Everything, everybody else is a threat. Any other opinion is a threat. Kasipa, like the story I move about mine, which he brings in the mind with it. She'echad, someone Bardas Godlo Baskola. He was a big, this looks like a chassidus. Das Godlo was a big intellectual Baskola. Bola Tzemach Tzedek al Yechidus. He came to the Tzemach Tzedek in Yechidus. V'yisoyin and complained, quote, as metretach min beis medrash. People step on me in beis medrash. I'm not treated respectfully. V'onole at Tzemach Tzedek answered him, du bist dich mispashet. Über dem ganzen beis medrash, you spread yourself throughout the entire show. As vu yene tret is al tzavdir. Wherever anybody else steps, he steps on you. Now, the Rebbe analyzes this whole story as only a Rebbe can do. V'yashloim b'dezeh, maybe by my mishatayni shloisa shaderisim bala b'beis medrash. The Rebbe suggests the fact that he brings in the maimon. What's in the gear where it happened? He came to the tzemach tzedek and said, people treat me disrespectfully. The maimon is medayik, makes the point that no, he said, where is it happening? In beis medrash. Meaning to say, where is this Jew? He's in the Beis Medrash, which is a small mikdash. The revelation, the literally the resting of the Shechina in a small mikdash in the Beis Medrash, is similar to the revelation of the presence of the Shechina in the Beis Hamikdash. Even that didn't move him. And his mele outside Beis Medrash is a big shot. No. In the Beis Medrash, there too, yeah. Not only that, Medaik Ba'amayim, his Pashtas HaYeshes, his Yeshes, his ego, literally spreads. Medaik Ba'amayim, he's saying even more now. There's a very difficult thing, friends. And moreover, the fact that he complained about this at Tzemach Tzedek, and he was in Yechidus. It's not like he went into Yechidus and all of a sudden he was embarrassed with his problem. It didn't happen. He's in Yechidus and he's in Yechidus or he's kashus ha-Yechidus shel zeh nichnas. What's Yechidus? Yechidus is the connection between the Yechida, the Etzem and the Neshama of the one who enters. With the Yechida of the Rebbe unto whom he enters. Interesting they're saying, and this is Muga, to see, I look at it, the Simchas Torah of that year, Tavshin Chav Beis, the Rebbe spoke about this. It's not the Rebbe's vot. This goes, I don't know, it's a vot of earlier Rabbi. We'll look it up. So here he's in Yechidah Blined. V'afal Pekin Gam Beyoyse Beyechidos, even Yechidus. Like we learned the story the other day of the Chassid that was determined to come, and Yechidus asked for brachas upanos, he just couldn't bring himself to do it. Okay, that's not our avodah, but the Inyan. In this case, this is not the case. In Yechidus, but Tzemach Tzedek, he comes with a legitimate complaint. With a feeling, he's being treaded upon. And maybe and all that, and that's why he brings these details in the story. If the learning is just learning intellectual, but it's not with it, it's without avodah. Even the guy was a from yid, obviously. Actually, from the big chassid. Actually, is his pashta say yeshes, he could still be caught up in his yeshes gam ben bikdash ba'at, even in the base medrash rafilu, kishen dichnas liyachidus, even in yachidus. Umezem moving hechrech bein avodah. This tells us how critical avodah is. What did the Tzemach tell him? Well, achre is there amal Tzemach Tzedek. And after telling him, what should they do everywhere? You spread wherever anybody steps, it's on you. So then he told him, Pirish HaKosa, this is recorded in Hayom Yom of Asada B'Tevis. Tomorrow. From the Haftarah of a tiny Tzibur. The Pasuk says, Yaziv Rasha Darkei. The wicked should forsake his way, the ish oven, and the sinful man machshavos of his thoughts. Said the Tzemach Tzedek to this chassid. That oven can be read also oin b'chayla. Oin means koyach v'ois, power, strength. Or pirish ish oin. What therefore is meant by a strong person? Ish chazak b'das atzmai. He's very opinionated, and he's very strong in his opinion, and resistant to any other opinion. That's what the Navi is saying. A person should leave his way. And and a man who is strong in his opinion should let go. Just like leaving, obviously abandoning evil behavior, ways is necessary. Sin, without tshuva, a person can't approach to holiness. Okay, and he puts in italics. Mukhrech, it's this. Likewise, it's also mukhrech, critical. Sha'ish oin. There's to be tshuva in the mind. Yeshes. Yazev's machshavosov should leave his thoughts. What are the thoughts? A machshav is the yeshes. My opinion, I say. Yeshloim, the machshakos, the machshavosov lashon rabim, not his thought, but his thoughts, in the plural. Ki b'machshav the yeshes eshtem kama v'kama darges. There's all kinds of levels of ego. Therefore, he says in the plural, even the more refined and dakas means subtle yeshes. He's not going to argue back and make it, but in his mind he's dismissive. It's idle. Yeah, nice, but I feel that Shabbat, so the Rebbe said, there's no escape here. Everybody at their level. Even Shabbat, whatever that is. The most subtle of the subtle yeshes in Machshav. It means, it would mean to be able to embrace the other opinion. You might, okay, embrace it. Opposite, you're wrong, and embrace it. Thank you. Okay, we'll stop here. Okay, interesting Gemara.